חזרנו. כבר יותר משנה שהעיתונאי והסופר דאגלס מאריי חורך את האולפנים בעולם עבור ישראל. בעימותים טלוויזיוניים, בראיונות באמצעי התקשורת המובילים, בקרב על תדמיתה של ישראל בעולם. בראיון בלעדי לעופר חדד לקראת הופעה מול קהל ישראלי, הוא מספר על הרגע שבו החליט לעלות על מטוס ולבוא לכאן, רגע אחרי 7 באוקטובר, וגם על הגל לאחור מהקמפוסים של ארצות הברית והתקיפת האוהדים באמסטרדם. הנה הראיון.
Douglas Murray, thank you so much for speaking to us.
It's a great pleasure.
הוא אחד הסופרים והוגי הדעות המצליחים כיום בעולם. קרוב לטראמפ ולנתניהו, מבקר חריף של השמאל המערבי, עם ספרים שתורגמו לעשרות שפות וקהל של מיליונים. וכבר יותר משנה שהוא עובד מסביב לשעון ומסביב לעולם עבור המערכה של ישראל בזירה הבינלאומית.
They want Israel to be destroyed. They want Hezbollah and Hamas to win. They're on the side of the jihadists. Why don't these people have the guts to come out and say it?
Well, who is
Israel
occupying?
is an occupying state.
Hang on, that's your view, and I have to correct your view.
There is no law of war that says you're allowed to start a war and then complain when you lose it. As a writer and a journalist, I believe that your job is to pursue the truth. The lies told about this country, to me, are intolerable.
Don't kidnap people and hold them in your house.
If Mehdi cares about the Palestinian casualties, then tell your bosses in Qatar to tell their friends in Gaza to stop the war and give back the hostages.
When I see people saying that, Israel is committing a genocide, I can't bear that lie.
Israel is actually doing the genocide.
The population of the Gaza has grown by 1 million in the last 15 or so years. None of the stats support that ridiculous claim. It's such a weird smear and a libel of Israel. I can tell you one thing. The comparison between Hamas and the Nazis is insufficient. And sorry, there's an incoming.
כבר 2 עשורים שהוא מטפח קשרים קרובים עם ישראל, אבל מאז מתקפת 7 באוקטובר, אם הוא לא פוקד את האולפנים ברחבי הגלובוס, הוא כאן.
So my friend Izzy here, about a kilometer into Lebanon, just walked most of the way in.
You were also here a decade ago during the operation in Gaza, but at least from my perspective, the last year turned you from just another supporter of Israel into the clearest voice for the state of Israel out there.
I was in New York on the 7th, and there was a protest in Times Square the next day against Israel. These were people celebrating a massacre that was ongoing.
In New York?
In New York, in Times Square. And I said then that you should know, the Jewish people in the world should know, and Israel should know that you're not alone. One of the things that stunned me was that we have seen such an upsurge of hatred against the Jewish people for the massacre. Within 24 hours, the world's news was already talking about Israel's response. They weren't even reporting what had happened. They weren't even uncovering the horrors.
I think you are doing something incredible for Israel.
There was a special moment when you entered Lebanon, when one of our soldiers stood there and saluted you.
On behalf of the IDF, on behalf of my people, thank you very much.
Thank you. I was very moved, very humbled, and felt frankly ridiculous because, again, all I was doing was being in Lebanon to report on what was happening in Lebanon, and he was there to fight and to defend the people of Israel. It's not the same thing.
בשנה שעברה זכה באות הוקרה מיוחד, מגן על האמת, מנשיא המדינה.
Thank you so much. Wow. Very special.
When you walk around in the streets of Tel Aviv and Yerushalayim, people recognize you by now?
Yes.
לפני המלחמה הזו, השם דאגלס מארי כנראה היה מוכר בעיקר לחובבי הז'אנר, למי שממש התעניין בגיאופוליטיקה ובעליית האסלאם באירופה.
Ladies and gentlemen, Douglas Murray.
אבל כיום, כשהוא מסתובב כאן בארץ, הוא כבר הרבה יותר מסופר מצליח. הוא רוקסטאר.
We had 3,000 people turned out to hear me and my friend Ben Shapiro, and it was a wonderful, very, very encouraging and warm evening. I'm doing a show in Tel Aviv on my own on December 4th.
כן, בין האליטה הבריטית ששבר חזק ימינה למחוזות השמרנות, ממלא אולמות עד אפס מקום בישראל עכשיו, עם משנתו הסדורה על עיוורון המערב.
You grew up in a Christian family, were educated in some of the top institutions in the UK, gay intellectual, seemingly on the direct path to the top of Britain's left-wing elite, and I ask myself, what went wrong?
I didn't want to lie. One of the things I've learned as a writer and a journalist is that you can either just report what you see with your own eyes, or you can try to pretend not to see. It's true that I've not been elevated to the House of Lords, I've not been given a knighthood and so on, but I don't seek any of those things, so...
ב-2017 הוציא מאריי את ספרו המוות המוסר של אירופה, שהפך רב מחר עולמי, ספר שהיכה גלים ועורר עליו גם לא מעט ביקורת. ב-2022 פרסם רב מחר נוסף, הקרב על המערב, שתורגם כעת גם לעברית בהוצאת שיבולת. מזהיר בלשון חריפה מפני קריסת המערב אל תוך גלי ההגירה שחוסים תחת אותה אידיאולוגיה פרוגרסיבית ואולטרה-ליברלית. בקרב טוענים שהוא משרת את הימין הקיצוני, מכליל, מעדד מסרים אסלאמופוביים, ומצידו מתעקש. אלה רק האליטות. האירופי הממוצע לדבריו הבין דווקא השנה איך היבשת שלו שינתה את פניה לבלי הכר.
Very few people have the tiny amount of courage required to say who the relevant Nazis are today.
A headline in the German press quotes the Berlin police chief with an alarming statement: Jews and homosexuals are not safe in Berlin.
I wish that this was somehow a surprise, but it isn't. It's all been completely predictable. Who are the people who mean that Jews, gays and others should hide their identity? It's not just the average German. After the attacks on Jews in Amsterdam recently, many people said these were Dutch citizens attacking Israelis. Were these Dutch people in clogs running out of their windmills and randomly attacking Jews on the streets of Amsterdam? No.
Safely Palestine we go. Good.
Unassimilated immigrant population within Europe are the only population for whom anti-Semitism is mainstream, commonplace, and taught. One of my taunts to my opponents in the international arena is every pro-Israel demonstration, whether it's in Sydney, Australia, Toronto, Canada, they will finish with the singing of Hatikva and the singing of the national anthem of the country in question. Every single anti-Israel protest in Britain never finishes with the singing of God Save the King. Why? Because they don't like Israel and they don't like the countries they're in. If you are a Muslim immigrant and you want to live in peace with your Jewish neighbors and you want friendship with your Jewish neighbors, stay, welcome, be part of our society. But if you think you're going to live in Berlin and hear sermons in a mosque that call for the eradication of Jews and you're going to bring that out on the streets, no, you go. You go. Because you know what? It's not just the Jews who don't need you. Europe doesn't need you. America doesn't need you. The West doesn't want you.
את החיים בלונדון הוא החליף מזמן בניו יורק, אבל גם שם המצב אפס לא מדהים.
Raise your hands if you're a Zionist! Raise your hands if you're a Zionist! This is your chance to get out!
כיום העיתונאי והסופר הזה הוא כבר הרבה יותר מהוגה דעות ומבקר של ההגירה. יש לו דעות מגובשות גם על האיום האיראני.
Stop Iran from getting the world's most dangerous weapons. And if it has to be Israel alone, I suppose it will be, but it shouldn't be.
וזה האיש שמדבר לא רק באולפנים, אלא גם לאוזניו של הנשיא הנבחר טראמפ, שאת ליל הניצחון שלו חגג איתו באחוזתו במר-א-לגו.
It was a historical moment, but it's not up to me to say what he may or may not do.
וגם עם נתניהו, מתחזק יחסים קרובים למדי. את אופיים וטבעם הוא לא ממהר לחשוף בפנינו.
How often do you speak to him? And if I may, what do you discuss?
Whenever I meet politicians in this country or see people in the Knesset, it's between us.
But at least can I ask you, how would you define your relationship with him? Is it friendly? Is it something that he seek for your advice?
I'm not getting drawn into that. I'm not arrogant enough to think that I should sit down with Israeli politicians any more than American politicians or British politicians and tell them what to do.
Douglas Murray, thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you. Well, it's a great pleasure to be with you.
דאגלס מאריי יופיע בשני מופעים בהיכל התרבות ב4 בדצמבר.